Here to welcome a very special guest here with me today. It's an author that my children have grown to love her books, and I'm absolutely honored to have her with us tonight. And I'd like to introduce you to Andrea Cheng.
Hi, thanks so much for having me. I'm real excited.
Well, I know because I haven't read all of your books, and every single one of them looks like a wonderful treasure packed in between the front and back cover. Can you give us just a little bit of a background about maybe why you started writing, or I don't know, what began the journey as an author?
Okay. I think that as a really little kid, I loved to read, and I think many writers start that way. And I think that, first of all, I come from a family where there were a lot of books around and a lot of people talking about books and ideas around the dinner table, and also a lot of storytellers.
I'm absolutely honored to have her with us tonight. And I'd like to introduce you to
Okay. And my father was in particular.
technology malfunction. I'm so sorry.
That's fine. That's fine. My father in particular was somebody who liked to tell stories of
And
the
every
past.
single one of them looks like a wonderful treasure packed in between the front. I'm so sorry. It's like double trouble in my ear. Go ahead.
Okay. And my father really liked to tell stories, and so I knew the stories of my parents' past and my grandparents. I lived in a home with an extended family under one roof, so my grandparents, at one time we had three of my grandparents living with us. So,
Three.
and we had my mother, my father, my brother, my sister, myself, three of my grandparents, my aunt, my uncle, and my cousin. So we were a family of immigrants
Wow.
from China, not from China, my husband's family from China. We were a family of immigrants from Budapest. I was born in the U.S. though. And so I think it was just one of a family with a lot of stories and a lot of people. And I think part of the reason I read a lot was because there were books around, but I think also I like to escape from the kind of stress of an immigrant family. And so I read a lot. I read the Laura Ingalls Wilder books. I read The Boxcar Children. I read The Secret Garden. And then when I was about 7, I think I started writing poems. And I started writing them all over the place. And my sister, who was 9, decided that for my birthday, when I turned 8, she would give me the most special present I probably ever had. And it was a blue notebook that was for my poems, and this is it. So she gave me this little book, and she just said I should copy all my poems in. So I started, these are all my poems that I copied in for about 2 years, because the last entry, I'm 10. So I think that's when I decided, you know what, I love doing this. I'm going to be a writer.
So how old were you?
I think when I started doing that about 7 or 8, and I think my parents loved to hear my poems. I think people encouraged me, and so that was maybe part of it. And my teachers. I started writing things at school, stories, especially when I was in elementary school, 4th, 5th, 6th grade. I had just phenomenal teachers in a Cincinnati public school. A lot of people were like, wow, you live in the inner city. Yeah, and you went to Cincinnati public schools. Yes. And it was great.
So now you had this whole bunch of family members, three grandparents living
Yeah.
in, and aunts and uncles.
Yep.
Uh, was there anyone in particular that was just encouraging you as a family that um, you just remember that positive voice in your mind, or was it just every single person in your family believed in what you were writing?
I think that in my family, everyone took the kids pretty seriously, but especially I think I was the one of the family that liked to read and write, and I think that resonated with my dad a lot. But I think that a lot of my stories come from my grandmother. She told me a lot of stories, and I speak Hungarian. If I didn't speak Hungarian, I don't think I would have known any of those stories because all the discussion around the dinner table was in Hungarian. So I think being in a bilingual family also gave me a richness of language experience that was sort of amazing. Now I look back at it. I also I lived in a predominantly African American neighborhood where I still live, and I think so. I also had a richness of dialect in the street. So I think the combination of being able to switch languages, switch dialects, easily move from one world to another. I think those were very. I feel so lucky.
What an amazing experience. Okay, so you spoke Hungarian, is that how you say it?
Mm-hmm.
At home, but you had two sets of grandparents. Did everybody speak Hungarian?
Yes, everybody.
So you went to school and spoke English, and then you came home and spoke a different language.
Not so much with my siblings or my parents, but with my grandparents. And if my grandparents were there, we all spoke Hungarian.
Oh, that's wonderful. We're huge on trying to expose children at an early age to another language because I think it makes them.
And I studied languages a lot. So I speak some Chinese, as you know from my books. My husband is the son of Chinese immigrants.
I was just going to say, this isn't a Hungarian book that we're reading.
That's based on my daughter and my father-in-law. But my husband, by the way, does not speak Chinese. He is Chinese. He does not speak Chinese. So when we go to China, it's interesting because people try to speak to him in Chinese, but I'm the one that speaks.
Okay, now the book that we're looking at the Educator Spin on it is the book Grandfather Counts, and it's a wonderful story. My 4-year-old he's 4.5, and he connected with it well. I would think it's probably more for kindergarten to 3rd grade. There is some longer text, and it is a very deep and powerful book. I think my 8-year-old is really the person who was like, oh, this book is for me. Because her grandparents are from Russia, so they speak very limited English, and we use a lot of hand signals when they come, and they usually come and stay with our family for a couple months at a time. And usually one of my children has to give up their bedroom, which the little girl in the story prepares her bedroom, and she moves in with another family member. And so it's all about how this girl's connecting with her grandfather that doesn't speak English. And my daughter was like, oh, that's kind of like me and my grandparents. And so I think she was really able to internalize the message of this book and how sometimes words aren't, you don't always have to speak the same language to connect with family members, I think is really what she took out of this. But I'd love to hear kind of your thoughts on what are some of the most important themes of this book, or maybe where you got your inspiration.
Yeah, I mean, the inspiration comes actually from 2 places. One is my husband's father and my kids. Now, my husband's father did speak English, but it just seemed like he didn't speak that well, and there just was a lack of communication between him and my kids. And I just remember my middle daughter kind of struggling with that. And I just watched the ways that they managed to communicate anyway, and to teach each other things and to draw pictures. And so I guess the theme to me is that if there's love behind it all, and if there's the will, people will find a way to connect with each other and to understand each other, despite differences in language. And I think this situation was even more pronounced with some of my friends, like my friend from Hong Kong. When her father came to visit, he didn't speak any English, and her kids didn't speak any Chinese. And he was very disappointed at first and kind of withdrew into himself and was reading newspapers all the time, Chinese newspapers. And she said to me, what should I do? What should I do? And so we were, our kids were the same age. She had 4 kids, I had 3. And I remember we talked about it. And I think this story comes from those conversations plus my daughter's experience.
That's a really wonderful thing, too, because I know that a lot of us have family that, I guess even if they speak the same language, we have troubles making those connections. And really the whole thing is that family's important, and no matter what, you have to find that way to make that connection. And so
and given time, you will. And also that there's sacrifices that you have to make in order to make those connections. Or you might have to give up your room if your grandpa comes, your grandma. But it's actually a wonderful thing. And who knows what will come. I mean, it's nice also to share your room with your siblings.
Yes, there may be added benefits that you didn't realize that happened before.
Exactly.
So now, when you are talking about this book, do you think that it's only for kids that have, family coming from China to visit, or who do you imagine reads or would benefit from reading this story?
I think it's for all kids, because there are always going to be times that children have trouble communicating with somebody. Whether it's because of it could be because of a different language, it could be because of different experiences, it could be because of different ages, it could be because of different neighborhoods, different dialects. There are a lot of reasons that there are barriers, but there are also a lot of ways to communicate. So I think that this is really for everybody, and I don't think it's at all only for immigrant families that have experienced that. I mean, maybe those children, like your kids, might have a special connection because of their experience. But I've been at schools where there are no immigrant children. I mean, I've been to some schools where there are really, really very few immigrant kids, and they will still connect with the story. My sister teaches in downtown Cincinnati in a school that's 99% African American. She teaches second grade. They love this book. And a lot of times I will ask the kids, so sometimes do you feel like it's hard to communicate with your grandma or grandpa? And a lot of kids will say yes, and they'll have various reasons why. And then, you know, they'll tell me how they communicate. Sometimes they say because I give them a hug and things like that. That's a good way to communicate. So, and the kids, no matter where they are, and no matter what their background is, they love hearing about other countries, cultures, and they love counting in Chinese. And I'll ask kids, you know, tell me in Chinese, how many kids are in your family? And then they'll hold up the fingers, you know, how many kids are in their family. And I'll say, can you say the word? And, you know, a lot of times they can, because I teach them first.
I was just going to say, when you and I were meeting prior to this hangout, that's one thing I said is, when I was reading this book, I felt like, I was like, oh my goodness, I have no idea if I'm reading it the right way, because they end up learning how to communicate by using a train that comes by beside their house every day. And that train is like a springboard for the way they connect. And they start off with teaching each other numbers. And it's such a simple but sweet gesture that, and it's such highly motivational. Like, trains are awesome.
Yeah. And, you know, the reason we had the idea for the train is because our house had a train track running behind it. When I was working on the story, I looked out the window and there was the train. So that's, you know, sometimes a very simple thing, you know. So if you'd like, I can count and teach people who are watching this how to pronounce the words.
Yes, please. For me.
I'm not a native speaker of Chinese, but I can count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's to 10. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's up to 10.
Okay. You got to go slower with me.
Okay.
What's the first one?
Do 1 till 3, right?
Yes.
Okay. 1,
2,
3,
汤
san with an S.
Tas.
San, S-A-N. 1, 2, 3.
1, 2, 3.
Good. Good for you.
1, 2, 3.
So if you want to say you have 3 children, like I have 3 children, and you have 3 children, san. That's the number of kids you have. So I ask the kids that. Kids will learn it. They also want to know how to count in Hungarian. I teach them that too when I teach this book.
That's awesome. Now, although I think we could probably spend a lot of time with that book, I know that you haven't just written one book. If you go on your author website, there is a whole bunch of picture books and a whole bunch of chapter books, and there's even some, you said, high school books? And it looks like a lot of them have that kind of interwoven theme of family and cultural diversity and positive relationships. Can you kind of give me a little highlight about what's in there? Because I can't wait to check some more books out.
Okay, well, I can show you. I have a few here besides Grandfather Counts. By the way, Grandfather Counts was my very first book that I published. So I will always be very close to this book because it was a 10-year struggle to get my first book published from the time I was 30 till the time I was 40. So this is a very special one to me. Goldfish and Chrysanthemums is also an intergenerational story, and it's about a girl and her grandma. Her grandma gets a letter. Her grandma comes from China. She's an immigrant. And her
grandma. Can you hold the picture up a little bit higher?
Sure. That's the Goldfish and Chrysanthemums. And the grandma gets a letter from her brother in China that says that their family home is going to be torn down to build apartment buildings. And I got this idea because when we were in China, there was a huge building boom there in Shanghai. And this was indeed happening, that they were tearing down old homes to build the new homes. And my husband's uncle was telling us about this. And so the grandma said, and the little girl asked her grandma, well, what was your house like? And she described that there was a fish pond there. And then the little girls go, Nancy's room, she was going to the fair for her school, and they had, you know, those fish bowls where you can throw ping pong balls and you can win the fish? And then she decides to create a pond for her grandma, similar to the pond that her grandma lost in China. So it's just a gesture of how you can cheer someone up and make them feel better. So a lot of times I'll ask kids, you know, did you ever cheer someone up? No, everyone's done it. And everyone has ideas about how to cheer somebody up. So I think it's, again, a universal theme, even though it takes place in China or in the U.S. with Chinese families, it could be anybody.
And it goes back to that family connection, that your family is very important and you have to care about them and connect with them.
Yeah, care about them, show them that you care about them. And then I think another picture book that kids really enjoy is the Lemon Sisters. And that's used a lot with the younger kids, the kindergartners, but also a little bit older too. And it's about three girls. One's called the Blue Hat, the Red Hat, and the Yellow Hat. And their connection with an old lady who sees them playing and thinks about her own childhood and her own sister. So it's about a connection between three little girls and three old ladies.
Now, if you look at I was trying to glance at the cover, it almost looks like a textured print.
Well, it's collage, which is so cool. I love that. I really love I love the artwork. This is Tatiana May Weiss, by the way, who did the artwork for this book. And I wish I could show you, but on the wall behind me here, I have an original from that book, an original collage. And it's really very cool. Sometimes I take it to kids and I show them, you know, the real thing. So I think those are like the three picture books. But I've written a series of chapter books recently. The Year of the Book is the first one. These are called the Anna Wong novels, and there are 4 of them. 3 of them are out, 1 more coming. So the Year of the Book, the Year of the Baby, and the Year of the Fortune Cookie, and the last one is called the Year of the Three Sisters. And the chapter books are usually read by kids in grades. Well, some, you know, first graders can read really well, but anywhere from 1st through 6th grade. And so they're. Can you
give me a peek on what's inside?
They're illustrated here. I can show you.
So I mean, just like the writing, like how.
Sure, I can show you. So there's a lot of text, but it's pretty easy read, broken into short chapters. There are some illustrations throughout, black and white. So here's like a chapter heading. And it's been very exciting to see these books take off. I feel like after writing 4 of them that if I walk out the door, I'm going to see Anna and Friends. And these are more friendship stories, friendship and family stories again. I think a little bit more on the friendship than some of my previous ones, but like the Year of the Baby, Anna Wong's family goes to China to adopt a baby. So that's the Year of the Baby. So again, family and friendship in really all those books.
Well, and I know that a lot of our readers, once they hit that kindergarten, 1st grade stage, and some of our kids just get addicted to reading, and they start like voraciously consuming books. And I know I'm always asked, like, what are good books for this age that are like strong family values and positive relationship building? So these seem like exactly what I know we're looking for as a family with our chapter books. So I'm going to definitely check those ones out.
You know, it's been fun to see some schools have used the Year of the Book, or the others as the whole school will read one book. You know, it's called One School, One Book, or One Book, One School. And that's been just so exciting to see this whole school unite around a title. And Anna Wong is like the star, the star of the school. And it's been very, very exciting for me. I've never written a series before, and wow, I just feel like I know these kids, you know? It's really been a very exciting journey.
So are you starting writing the next one?
Well, the 4th one's almost done. In fact, I have the editor, the galleys or whatever, right here on the table. And this is like, you know, the book where it's just copied, Xeroxed, and the editor has written a bunch of stuff on it. you can see her handwriting, and then I have to decide whether I agree with what she's suggesting or I don't. So this one is coming out this spring, so yes, it has to be ready. In fact, I'm going to mail it tomorrow.
That's exciting.
Yeah, yeah. A little bit makes me sad, too, because then I'll be done with Anna Wong.
Is it just a 4-book series?
Yes, because she goes from 4th grade to 5th grade to 6th grade to 7th grade, and I think you're not going to have chapter books about kids getting older than that. You know, I have written books for older kids, but those are, like I wrote Marika, based on my mom's life during the Holocaust from 1935 to 1945. So that's a book for older kids.
Well, that's wonderful, though, that you're so amazingly talented that you can connect really well with our younger early elementary and preschool and get our kids excited about reading. And then as they grow up, they can kind of follow your writing.
Yeah, that's been fun. I have a few kids. I have a girl in Hawaii who keeps writing me.
That's awesome.
She started when she was little reading the books. Now she keeps asking me if I have more, and I think, wow, I already have a lot. She's really sweet. I wish I could meet her someday.
You know, you never know.
Yeah, you never know. You never know. And my kids are big fans of the books, and a lot of the books are based on my own children. Like Anna Wong is based on a combination of my 2 daughters.
So now, when you say your fans connect with you, do you like when people write you messages on your blog, or what is the best way if we have friends or family or readers who are inspired by your books? What's the best way that they can connect with you?
Oh, just write. Either you can write through my website. There's a contact on my website, and I think that's the easiest way. And I always write back. It might take me a few days, but I always write back.
Well, that's really nice to know. Yeah. And then, as I said earlier, if you decide that you'd like to follow along with Educator Spin on It, we are going to be building a book basket with an activity you can do with your kids in connection with Grandfather Counts. Andrea Cheng, and I'll put the link below so that you're welcome to just click through for that information. And then you, Andrea Cheng, had mentioned that you do school visits. Mm-hmm. Is that something that if our readers want to either, gather their PTA and fund you, where do they find information for that?
Yeah, on my website, I have a section on author visits, which talks about the different possible types of visits, because different schools have different needs, different things they want to do. Like some schools I've done workshops with kids, like with a group of 3rd graders. I did a couple of years of doing with that. And then this summer I did some school visits in Switzerland because one of my kids lives there. She's married to a Swiss guy, so I thought, okay, let me go there. And I went to 4 schools and did, some I did workshops, some I did standard author visits, and sometimes a 1 book, 1 school. So whatever suits the needs of the school, I try to be flexible. I enjoy, if anybody has new ideas, that's always fun. So, whatever people want to do. I did want to mention that I think the Year of the Book series has been on several state award lists, including Florida. So there's a lot of stuff out there, like in the Texas Blue Bonnet, and I have links on my website. So a lot of people have already developed a lot of activities to go along with some of the books. So if you're looking for activities to do with your class or with your kids, you can figure out your own, but you can also look at some that other people have done.
That's a great resource. And so when you say workshops, I think I know what you mean, and that's when I guess it kind of works where like a group of parents kind of say, we really want to get our kids excited because there's, us meeting virtually is one thing, but actually getting to meet in person it's almost like a magical experience. I know when I've met my favorite authors, I'm in awe, and it makes me so much more passionate about reading and delving into the books even further and deeper. So when you talk about workshops that you do at schools, does that mean like you go into a classroom and almost teach a lesson?
Yeah, well, yeah, sort of. With the workshops, the teachers really have to buy into it because it involves work from the teachers. So what I've done is For example, with the school in Columbus, Ohio, we chose the theme of empathy because that was kind of the theme of their school year. And so we did this thing with empathy through reading and writing. And so I went maybe 4 times over the course of a couple of months to work with the 4th graders on their empathy pieces. And they wrote poems. We talked about what is empathy and stuff. And then they wrote poems and they wrote stories. And we worked on those pieces. So I actually read every one of those, the things they wrote, and I tried to give them some ideas of how maybe it could be a little bit better. And then eventually we sort of published these, some schools have done online publishing. Some actually went to, on Amazon or Scholastic, whatever, you can get those books made. So, and that was really exciting. Some kids did illustration. I also do some of my own illustration, not for the picture books, but I've done some. So I did prints and woodcuts with the kids. So I've done a variety of stuff where we've actually come out with a product, like a book of all their poems or stories. So by workshop, I mean,
I want you to come to my school.
Workshop, you actually don't do something with the kids. The advantage is that the kids actually get to work with an author. The disadvantage is that you can't see as many kids because if the school has 800 kids or something, you cannot possibly do that kind of thing with all those kids unless you were there for a long time. So usually it's just 1 or 2 grades.
So then do they kind of, then you have another one you said, a standard author visit.
Yeah.
Can you just kind of explain to our readers what a standard author visit might look like?
Right. Usually when I go to a school for a standard author visit, I will do up to 3 presentations. So they divide the kids into maybe, the younger grades, the middle grade, the older grades, or even sometimes it's elementary, middle, high school, whatever they want. And then I just talk about where ideas come from. I have a PowerPoint that shows where I got my ideas and how those ideas then became a book, how I revise. I actually show all the revisions because I think a lot of kids think, I don't want to write this again. Why would I have to copy this over, this kind of thing. And so, I love revising, and I think they're pretty surprised to see I'll revise something 20 times and think nothing of it, And so I just try to show them it's not magic. Anybody can do it. You just have to be attuned to things around you. You have to be observant and watch a lot, listen to how people talk and watch people and then try to write it. And then also listen to what other people's reaction is when they read your stuff. So, it's a pretty...
You brought up that very... Okay, so it's coming up with the idea, revising it, but also seeing how others react to it.
Right.
Okay.
Because that informs revision, Not because you have to do what someone tells you, but if someone doesn't understand what you mean, then maybe you didn't say it right. Or maybe there's another way you could say it. But I think mostly I try to inspire the kids because at this young age, I think that goes a long way. It's one thing if someone's, 18 and maybe you want to really be a little bit, not hard on kids, but, really get them to see more. But I think for the younger kids, the inspiration, my 4th, 5th, and 6th grade teachers just inspired me. And they said that my stuff was good, and that gave me the impetus to do more. So, there's a lot of that, I think.
I think you're catching on a lot of. I could spend weeks with you. I would love to go out for lunch. You should move closer. I think you need to come visit all of our schools because this is the message that our kids need to hear, that they're creative thinkers, that they're good writers, and that they can pull their life experiences and weave them into stories that other people might find enjoyable.
Right, and I think that's what, it's not magic. I think some kids think, I'm not talented. I don't have such and such ability, But I think it's just not that way. You don't have ability until you do something. Then you become able to do it.
And I think as parents, I want to try and make sure that I encourage my child, and then it goes back to all your stories, that this connection and finding a way that we can communicate, cross-generational and through language barriers with the people we love, and making sure that they feel supported, I think is so important. So I guess our last question would be, if you are, whether you're a 6-year-old or, like you said, an 18-year-old, or even the adults out there, because I know they are asking, what would be your first step if you wanted to write your own story in a book?
I guess I think the first step would be watch and listen. Use all your senses, observe everything around you, how it sounds, how it smells, what you hear, and then choose something that grabs you, that you've seen maybe today, and just try to write down what you know. I mean, I always say write what you know, because you really can't write about something you don't know about. So it's all around you. What you know is right there. It can be like the train in Grandfather Counts was out the window. That's why I wrote about it, because I looked up, I was sort of stiff from writing. I looked out there went the train. I was like, okay, here's the train, and I just wrote it in there. I saw a turtle the other day, which is unusual here, and I put the turtle into the story because I just remembered it. So if you're aware of the world around you, then you can get it down.
So be aware, use your senses, and write your story.
Write your story.
All right. Well, Andrea Cheng, thank you so much for joining us today. And readers and followers and friends and family, we sure appreciate you watching and listening. And again, I'll put the links right below in the comment section. And please stop by both of our blogs to find out more information and connect with us. Thank you
so much. It's been a lot of fun to talk to you, and I look forward to hearing from everyone. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks. Bye.